If forgiveness has no limits, punishment makes no sense. But if punishment is necessary, forgiveness begins to feel incomplete. Both ideas cannot exist comfortably together. Yet for centuries they have shared the same space in human belief. This contradiction sits at the center of one of the most unsettling questions ever asked. If God forgives all sins, why does hell still exist? Imagine a doorway that never closes. Behind it lies eternity. No clocks. No return. No second chances. If forgiveness is real, if mercy truly has meaning, then such a place should not need to exist at all. And yet, across cultures, faith traditions, and centuries of belief, hell remains unchanged, not softened by time, not erased by compassion, still present, still feared. Consider a man who lived quietly. He was not cruel. He did not seek to harm others. He worked, raised a family, and followed the rules as best as he understood them. He made mistakes, small ones, ordinary ones, moments of selfishness, moments of silence when help was possible. Nothing dramatic. Nothing unforgivable by human standards. Just the quiet imperfections of an average life. As the end of his life approaches, something heavier than fear begins to surface. It is not fear of death itself. It is fear of judgment. Because if forgiveness is truly unlimited, then a life like his should be enough. And yet the idea of hell still exists, unmoved by good intentions, unaffected by relative goodness. Why? This is where the tension begins. Forgiveness suggests release. Punishment suggests consequence. Hell suggests permanence. If forgiveness erases guilt, what purpose does eternal separation serve? Why would a loving God maintain a reality defined by distance rather than reconciliation? Many assume hell exists purely as a threat, a warning meant to control behavior, a tool designed to instill fear, but fear alone cannot sustain a moral universe. Fear may prevent, but fear alone cannot sustain a moral universe. Fear may prevent wrongdoing, but it cannot create goodness. It produces obedience, not transformation. In human experience, forgiveness rarely erases consequences. When trust is broken, forgiveness may be offered, but distance often remains. A relationship damaged by betrayal does not instantly return to intimacy. Forgiveness opens a door. It does not force someone to walk through it. This distinction quietly reshapes the meaning of hell. Some interpretations no longer describe hell as a place of active torture, but as a state of separation. Not separation imposed by divine anger, but separation chosen through persistent refusal. Not refusal of belief, but refusal of transformation. Because forgiveness requires more than regret. It requires change. The man who lived quietly avoided great evil, but avoidance is not the same as alignment. A life without cruelty is not automatically a life oriented toward goodness. Forgiveness offers restoration, but restoration must be accepted. This introduces an unsettling possibility. That hell is not the opposite of forgiveness, but the result of rejecting it. Imagine forgiveness as an open invitation, not forced, not demanded, simply offered. If that invitation is continually ignored, forgiveness remains real, but relationship never forms. Distance becomes permanent, not as punishment, but as outcome. In this view, hell exists not because forgiveness fails, but because freedom remains intact. A God who forgives all sins while removing all consequences would erase moral agency itself. Choice would lose meaning. Goodness would become compulsory. This creates a paradox. Mercy without justice becomes indifference. Justice without mercy becomes cruelty. The tension between them is not a flaw. It is the structure of moral reality. Forgiveness does not cancel accountability. It reframes it. It asks not only what was done, but who someone chooses to become. Hell, then, is no longer about punishment or mistakes. It becomes the final state of a will that refuses reconciliation. This is disturbing because it means hell is not reserved for monsters. It is reserved for those who remain closed, not because they are hated, but because they will not be changed. Fear of hell dominates many religious imaginations, but fear cannot produce love. It can only produce compliance. Compliance avoids punishment, but it does not create relationship. If heaven represents perfect communion, then hell represents its absence. Not flames, but distance. Not torment, but isolation. And isolation, when eternal, becomes unbearable. The original question now shifts. If God forgives all sins, why does hell exist? Because forgiveness respects freedom, and freedom allows refusal. This answer is not comforting. It is heavier than fear, because it suggests the afterlife is shaped not by a checklist of actions, but by direction. Not belief alone, not behavior alone, but orientation. A life may appear good externally while remaining closed internally. Forgiveness does not force openness. It waits. This leads to another unsettling thought. If hell were removed entirely, would choice still exist? If every path led to the same destination, would love still be meaningful? Or would goodness become automatic, stripped of intention? Hell, then, stands as the cost of genuine freedom. The price of allowing love to be chosen rather than imposed. This does not resolve the discomfort. It deepens it. Because it means hell is not the failure of mercy, but the boundary of it. Forgiveness remains offered, but it does not override refusal. The man who lived quietly now stands before that doorway, not judged for imperfection, but for direction. Not condemned for weakness, but for unwillingness. Whether he enters or remains outside is no longer about a list of sins. It is about acceptance of transformation. And here, certainty dissolves. Judgment becomes revelation rather than sentencing, a revealing of what was always chosen. Hell exists not as contradiction to forgiveness, but as its shadow. Where forgiveness is offered, refusal becomes possible. Where love is extended, separation gains meaning. The question, then, is no longer why hell exists. It is why freedom exists at all, and whether a universe without hell would also be a universe without choice. The doorway remains open, forgiveness remains real, but eternity does not force acceptance, and that may be the most unsettling truth of all.